The Black Hours Mississippi M.493, or the Morgan Black Hours, is an illuminated book of hours completed in Bruges between 1460 and 1475. 1. It consists of 121 leaves, with Latin text written in Gothic minuscule script. The words are arranged in rows of 14 lines, and follow the Roman version of the texts. The lettering is inscribed in silver and gold, and placed within borders ornamented with flowers, foliage and grotesques, on pages dyed a deep bluish black. It contains 14 full-page miniatures and opens with the months of the liturgical calendar, folios 3 verso, 14 recto, followed by the hours of the Virgin, and ends with the office of the dead, folio 121v. MSM.493 has been in the collection of the Morgan Library and Museum, New York, since 1912. It is one of 7 surviving black books of hours, all originating from Bruges and dated to the mid to late 15th century. They are so named for their unusual dark bluish appearance, a colorization achieved through the expensive process of dyeing the vellum with iron gall ink. This dye is very corrosive and the surviving examples are mostly badly decomposed. MSM.493 is in relatively good condition due to its very thick parchment. The book is a masterpiece of late Gothic manuscript illumination. 2. No records survive of its commission, but its uniquely dark tone, expensive production, quality and rarity suggest ownership by privileged and sophisticated members of the Burgundian court. The book is often attributed, on stylistic grounds, to a follower of Willem Verlant, a leading and influential Flemish illuminator. The Black Books of Hours are a grouping of 4 to 5, some books so defined contain only a few pages in this style, extant Flemish illuminated manuscripts so named for their dark appearance. 3. The effect was achieved by soaking the vellum in black dye or ink before they were lettered with gold and silver leaf. 4. The black dye was highly corrosive and so the metals had to be of high purity, and the vellum needed to be unusually thick to survive the process. 5. The black manuscripts date from about 1455 to 80 and include the Black Hours, Hispanic Society, New York, circa 1458, Black Hours of Galeazzo Maria Sforza, circa 1466 to 67, and the Hours of Mary of Burgundy, circa 1477. 6-7, they can be assumed to have been produced for high-ranking members of society, probably from the court of Philip the Good or Charles the Bold. 8. MSM.493 was likely intended for high nobility. The artwork is of a sophisticated and unusual taste, and the uncommon color of the pages supposedly carried an almost mystical aura for the owner. 9. The members of the Burgundian court were known to have had a preference for dark, somber colors, and the black books can be assumed to have been designed specifically for their taste. 10. Black books were more highly regarded than conventional illuminated books of hours, and today art historians assume they were commissioned by the court of Philip the Good. 9. Philip's proclivity for black arose from the brutal assassination in 1419 of his father John the Fearless. The funeral procession was lined with 2,000 black flags with black standards. From then on Philip wore only black clothes, as an expression of his grief. 5. The style was adapted by other members of the court, who seem to have favored black against gold and silver in artworks as well in formal dress, as can be seen in Rogier van der Weyden's contemporary Jean Wauquelin presenting his Chronique de Anneau to Philip the Good. 11. Emperor Maximilian I observed of the Burgundian rulers that their collections were luxurious, the home treasury, and the library full of treasures, and the court ceremonial were oriented on a godlike super-elevation of the ruler. 5. The book's parchment was darkened by soaking it in iron gall ink. This can be corrosive both to parchment and to dye, and only golden pigments could withstand the corrosion. The surviving black books are generally in poor condition. MSM.493 is the best preserved example, its thick leaves having protected the parchment. The manuscript's pages are largely intact. The other black books can be displayed only within airtight acrylic glass panes and are quite decayed. 11. The manuscript does not contain any family crest to identify the donor, who, given the expense of the book and its labor-intensive production, is assumed to have been a high-ranking member of court. 9. Feast days noted in the calendars, including for Donation of Reims, 14th of October, indicate it was produced in Bruges, or given the inclusion of the Feast of Levinus, 12th of November, possibly in Ghent. 12. The artists who designed, illustrated and inscribed MSM.493 are unknown, as are the circumstances of its commission. The book is often linked to the circle of the Utrecht illuminator Willem Verlant, who was highly regarded and successful, and was active in Bruges from the 1450s until his death in 1481. 1. This attribution is based on the resemblance of some of the figures in the miniatures with those in works attributed to him. The angular and linear manner of the figure's clothes is also consistent with his style. 11. The text pro me peccator, for me a sinner, which uses a masculine form of the Latin noun, indicates the book was produced for a man, and the inventory records of its mid-19th century owner, Nicholas Yemeney's, record that it was produced by a workshop which had often been commissioned by the Burgundian dukes. 12. Other possible attributions include the circle of the French painter Philippe de Mézeroles, d. 1479-12, or the workshop of Leven van Latham, active 1454-93. 11. According to the Morgan Library, Van Latham's influence can be seen in the figures in angular drapery, who move somewhat stiffly and shallowly defined spaces, while the men's flat faces are dominated by large noses. 1. The style of the miniatures and borders are similar to those of the Galeazzo Maria Sforza in Vienna, but they are not from the same workshop. 1314. The manuscript consists of 122 pages each measuring about 17 cm x 12 cm, 6.7 in x 4.7 in. The borders mostly colored light blue, 5, while the illustrations are overwhelmingly dark, and of black, gray-red, old rose and green pigments, with some white and flesh tone colors. Each miniature is placed opposite the text of a prayer set against a dark background. This book's solemnity is in contrast to the bright colors found in most contemporary books of hours and seems to reflect a rather gloomy and mournful court outlook. 9. The blues were formed from different mixtures of ingredients, each allowing varying depths and varieties of color. 11. The miniature's technique and style can be dated as around 1475. In the 15th century, ultramarine pigment was extremely rare and worth more by weight than gold. 11. Thus, its prevalence in this work is an indicator of the commissioner's wealth. 1516. The opening letters of each prayer are formed from gold leaf on green ground. 2. Their texts contain words from the Hours of the Cross, the Hours of the Holy Spirit, the Mass of the Virgin, the Hours of the Virgin, the Penitential Psalms, and the Office of the Dead. 12. The lettering is in Gothic minuscule with silver ink, with gold leaf added to the rubrics. 512. The border decorations include landscapes, jagged acanthus scrolls, birds, small animals and grotesques. The latter are similar in style to those found in the Black Hours of Galeazzo Maria Sforza, and include naked winged devils and hybrid men. 17. They are ornamented exclusively in gold and are shaded mostly by black pigment. They are lined with yellow or gold filigree and extravagant foliage, including vines. 11. The manuscript has deteriorated over time and has flaked in some areas. 1. The book was rebound in the 19th century for its then owner, the French bibliophile Nicholas Yemeney's, Fr., by the bookbinder Georges Trotz, Fr., known as Trotz Bonnet, 17, and is today encased in a wooden box, which is also modern. 12. The binding is in tan pigskin with oxidized silver clasps. Yemeney's monogram of 2 interlocking Ys is stamped on the central panel of the binding and on the clasps. 1218.